Welcome back to my belated annual Oscar series wherein I take a look at all the Oscar categories except for the short film ones. I rank the nominees according to who I think should win the Oscar, and then I make an official prediction as to who I think will win the Oscar. Of course, I'm going to be talking about the Oscars from last year first because I didn't get to do it then, but I'm going to continue where I left off with the category of Best Cinematography. So the nominees are Carol, Ed Lachman; The Hateful Eight, Robert Richardson; Mad Max Fury Road, John Seale; The Revenant, Emmanuel Lubezki; and Sicario, Roger Deakins. Now this is a tremendous list of nominees. Every single one of these cinematographers is so incredibly talented in very, very different ways, which is why this particular category, it's really hard to put them in order, to rank them. Honestly, if any of them won, I would have been pretty satisfied. But I'm gonna attempt to rank them anyway, so in terms of who I think should have won the Oscar, at 5th place, I'm going to put The Hateful Eight. First of all, just because it's at number 5 doesn't mean I don't think the cinematography in The Hateful Eight is great, because it really is. And the cinematography in this movie was really widely publicized since the movie was shot on film, not digital, and the cameras they used had these really, really wide lenses so that when they would be projected in the cinemas, it would feel like you're watching one of those old school spaghetti westerns. And for the most part, it really, really works. You know, the outdoor shots in The Hateful Eight are so majestic to look at, and there's so many moments throughout the film that feel as if you're watching like a movie from the 70s. Like, it really pulls off that atmosphere and that vibe. The only reason why it's at number 5 for me, and you know, don't get me wrong, I don't think the cinematography in The Hateful Eight does anything wrong. It's just that I don't feel like the cinematography was used to its full potential in the film, because most of the film is shot indoors, so they don't really get to have a lot of those wide angles and whatnot. Although I will give them kudos for, you know, kind of taking an orthodox approach. You know, they knew they had this equipment, but they still decided to shoot mostly indoors, so it does give a pretty interesting perspective indoors, so I will give them that. Now moving on, at 4th place, I'm gonna put Carol. And the cinematography in Carol has this really warm feeling, sort of similar to The Hateful Eight, which really puts you into the vibe of the time period of the 50s. And what really helps also with this is the somewhat muted color palette that Ed Lachman uses, that really kind of feels, it makes it feel like there's smoke in the room, like cigarette smoke. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but it just makes you feel warm. But really the biggest reason why the cinematography in Carol is so good is the fact that Ed Lachman's framing in this movie is probably some of the best framing in a movie in 2015. Like, this movie is all about spaces between people, and you really get that just from Ed Lachman's visuals, like the way he assembles the images. I mean, credit also goes to Todd Haynes, the director, but the cinematography here really says so much about these characters, and all these recurring shots of people behind glass. Like, it just says so much about the story that it's impossible to ignore. Now at number 3, I'm going to put Sicario. And first of all, like, Roger Deakins, the cinematographer, is a tried and tested master at this craft. Like, he is probably the superstar when it comes to cinematography, and what he does so well in most of his films is that he drenches scenes in certain colors, so that they're overwhelmed by a certain feeling or emotion. And what Deakins does so well in this movie in particular is that he makes darkness feel like real darkness. You know, like, there's no cheating with the lighting when there are characters outdoors at midnight or whatever. Like, it really feels like they're there and you have to sort of squint to see them, which adds to the effect and really immerses the viewer into the story. And there are some shots in Sicario that are so unbelievably well composed, and they tell the story just as effectively as Denis Villeneuve tells it through his direction, or how Johan Johansson tells it through his music. Like, these shots can stand alone by themselves and completely capture the overbearing nature of the war on drugs and just how messy it is. Now at 2nd place, I am actually gonna put The Revenant. Now, if there was one film that everyone was raving about in 2015 for its cinematography, it was definitely The Revenant. Emmanuel Lubezki, like, it was really widely publicized as well, just how he only used natural lighting for the film, which I think is ridiculous and crazy, and it fit perfectly with the story. It really matched how this character of Hugh Glass, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, was really just sort of traversing this wilderness by himself, And it's as a result, it's one of the coldest movies I think you'll ever see because of just how you feel just all this the force of nature bearing down on this guy. And I really don't have a clue on how they pulled this movie off, especially how Lubezki pulled off all these extremely complex long takes throughout the landscapes that must have taken ages to rehearse. However, the reason why it's at number 2 and not number 1 is, in my opinion, this will sound a bit weird, but I feel like the cinematography is a bit too beautiful sometimes for the film itself. Because the movie is really brutal and it's unapologetic, it's nihilistic, and sometimes the beautiful imagery sort of does not match that vibe. And a lot of the shots, while beautiful to look at, they seem like they're trying to be symbolic, but they don't really signify anything, so some of those shots are wasted in my opinion. So that's why at number 1, I am giving the edge to Mad Max Fury Road. John Seal, first of all, is a great cinematographer who at like over 70 years old came out of retirement just to shoot this movie. To me, that's incredible. And what he does with this movie is that there are really only 2 colors in the color palette. There's orange and then there's blue, but they're used to perfection in this film. The way he uses oranges to make the days feel hotter and the blues to make the nights feel colder, and using both of those colors to just make the air just feel toxic and violent. Like when I think about the post-apocalypse, I will think of the colors in Mad Max Fury Road. The desert in Fury Road looks endless, but like everything is just so clear despite all the action going on. You understand exactly what's happening. It's just such a delirious movie. It's one of the best shot action movies of all time, hands down. And it's proof that big budget action filmmaking can be art. But of course, my official bet for who would win the Oscar was The Revenant, and of course they did give it to Emmanuel Lubezki. I mean, this guy was getting Oscar buzz from the very first images of The Revenant that landed on the internet. And I was sure that the Academy would jump at the chance to give a cinematographer 3 Oscars in a row for the very first time. He won previously for Birdman and Gravity. He really deserved it. He has a great career. Alright, so those are my thoughts on the category of Best Cinematography. What did you guys think of this category in this year? What did you think of the nominees? Who do you think should have won? Who do you think was going to win? Whatever you guys thought, whether you agree with me or not, please leave me a comment. Let's have a conversation.